All right, so you ready to do a deep dive into the life of Anita Bryant?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The orange juice lady.
That's right.
But there's so much more to her story
Oh, so much more.
than just, those catchy jingles and sunshine and oranges.
Right.
We're going to be looking at excerpts from a recent AP News article about her passing.
Yeah.
And her impact was really anything but simple.
No, it's really a fascinating journey when you think about it. You've got this woman rising to fame in the 1960s,
Yep.
time of major cultural shifts,
Yeah.
And then she becomes this lightning rod in the fight for gay rights.
Exactly. And it's so interesting that she kind of started as this unifying figure, almost a symbol of Americana.
Right?
I mean, she was hosting a TV show when she was 12 years old in Oklahoma.
Wow.
And Miss Oklahoma.
Uh-huh.
Then belting out hits like Till There Was You and Paper Roses,
Yeah.
Grammys,
Yeah.
Bob Hope, the White House.
I mean,
She did it all.
She did it. And don't forget, performing at both the Democratic and Republican conventions in '68.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's hard to imagine someone bridging that divide today.
Right. She was everywhere.
Yeah.
And then, boom, the face of Florida orange juice.
Yeah.
I bet you could still hear that jingle.
Oh, absolutely.
A day without orange juice is like a day without sunshine.
Yeah, that campaign really cemented her image as wholesome and all-American,
Yeah.
which makes her later activism all the more jarring because it wasn't just a shift in opinion, it was like a complete 180.
Totally. So we're talking late 1970s.
Yeah.
The gay rights movement is gaining steam, and Bryant jumps to the forefront of the opposition.
Yeah.
She leads this huge campaign to repeal a non-discrimination ordinance in Miami-Dade County,
Right.
aligning herself with figures like Reverend Jerry Falwell and that Save Our Children coalition.
Yeah, and her language. Wow.
I know.
She called homosexuality a deviant lifestyle and even used terms like human garbage to describe gay people.
Yeah.
This wasn't just disagreement.
It was like rhetoric that fueled real fear and prejudice.
And it sparked a massive backlash.
Oh, yeah.
People weren't just disagreeing, they were boycotting the products that she was, the face of.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Anita Bryant drink
Oh, yeah.
apple juice instead of orange juice?
Yeah.
That's how strongly people felt.
I mean, that was a powerful symbol of the rejection she was facing.
Right.
And then, of course, there's that iconic image of her getting pied in the face
Oh, yeah.
during an appearance in Iowa.
During an appearance.
Yeah, talk about a moment that really captures that intensity of the opposition.
It's really hard to imagine a celebrity facing that kind of public rebuke today.
No.
You don't really see that anymore.
And it wasn't just public opinion that turned against her.
Right.
Her career tanked.
Yeah.
Her marriage ended, and she even eventually filed for bankruptcy.
Wow.
You have to wonder, if on some level she regretted the path that she chose.
Yeah, that's where her story gets really compelling, don't you think? Because it raises these questions about conviction and the price of fame.
Right.
Did her activism come from a purely religious place?
Yeah.
Was there an element of fear of a changing world, or was it something else entirely?
I mean, we can't get inside her head,
Right.
but it really does make you think about how personal beliefs can become so intertwined with public life.
Yeah.
Especially for someone in the spotlight.
Especially back then.
Yeah, and while Bryant might have, won that initial battle in Miami-Dade, the ordinance she fought so hard to repeal
Yeah.
was ultimately restored in 1998.
That's right. In the grand scheme of things, her efforts to hold back the tide of, LGBTQ plus rights were unsuccessful.
Yeah.
And that's a point that Tom Lander, a present-day LGBTQ plus activist, makes in the AP article.
Oh, yeah.
He argues that, she might have won a battle, but she lost the war.
Yeah. And he also draws some interesting parallels between Bryant's movement and the modern parental rights movement,
Oh, interesting.
which is pushing, similar anti-LGBTQ plus legislation.
No.
So it's a reminder that these debates aren't just history.
Right.
They continue to shape our world today.
It's almost like we're seeing a resurgence of the same anxieties and fears repackaged for a new generation.
Yeah, so the big question is, what can we learn from Bryant's story? Is it a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked conviction?
Yeah.
Or is it more complex than that?
Perhaps it's both.
Yeah.
I mean, we can acknowledge the harm her actions caused while also recognizing the human story behind them.
It's definitely a lot to unpack, and there's still so much to explore.
Yeah, let's dive into her later life and see what other insights we can uncover.
Oh, let's do it.
Yeah, it's interesting because they really do.
Yeah.
You know, the parental rights movement today really echoes a lot of the language and tactics of, Bryant's era.
Yeah.
They both tap into this idea of like protecting children.
Right.
But the underlying message often targets, LGBTQ plus individuals and their families.
It's like history is rhyming,
Yeah.
as Mark Twain said. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about Bryant's life after the peak of her activism.
Okay.
She ended up back in Oklahoma leading the Anita Bryant Ministries International.
That's a key detail because even though she faced, such intense backlash and her career never fully recovered,
Yeah.
she never really backed down from her convictions.
Right.
It makes you wonder, did she ever have any doubts
Yeah.
or second thoughts, or was she truly just unwavering in her beliefs?
It's tough to say, but it's clear that her faith remained a central part of her life.
Yeah.
And according to the AP article, she passed away on December 16th, 2024, at the age of 84.
Wow.
She was survived by 4 children, 2 stepdaughters, and 7 grandchildren.
It's a reminder that even someone as controversial as Anita Bryant, was also a mother, a grandmother, a person with a family and loved ones.
Yeah.
It adds another layer of complexity to her story, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's so easy to reduce people to labels, especially, in the age of social media.
Oh, yeah.
But Bryant's life, with all its contradictions, shows that people are rarely just one thing.
Right.
So if we had to sum it all up, what do you think is the biggest takeaway from Bryant's journey?
Well, for me, it highlights the power and the peril of conviction.
Mm-hmm.
On one hand, she was incredibly successful in, mobilizing people and advocating for her beliefs.
Right.
But on the other hand, those beliefs caused real harm and ultimately aligned her with a losing side of history.
Yeah.
It's a cautionary tale about the importance of examining our own convictions, considering their impact on others, and being open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
It's also a story about the evolving nature of fame.
That's true.
She went from being America's sweetheart to a figure of intense controversy.
Yeah.
It shows how public perception can shift dramatically, especially in times of social change.
Especially in times like the one she was living in.
Right.
And let's not forget the historical context. Bryant's activism happened during a really pivotal moment in the fight for LGBTQ plus rights.
Yeah.
It was a time of fear and uncertainty.
Right.
And often outright hostility towards the gay community.
Yeah.
Her story is a window into that era.
Right.
And it reminds us how far we've come, but also how far we still have to go.
That's so important.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to look back at history and judge people by today's standards.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But understanding the context of the time really helps us see how individuals and movements are shaped by the world around them.
Exactly. And it challenges us to consider how our own views might be influenced by the time and place we live in.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that progress isn't linear, and there will always be those who push back against change, even when that change is for the better.
And that brings us to the parental rights movement today.
Yeah.
While the language might be different, the underlying anxieties and fears about LGBTQ plus individuals and families really do echo the rhetoric of Bryant's era.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
It's a stark reminder that the fight for equality is far from over.
That's right.
Yeah. It's almost like we're seeing a cyclical pattern in history.
It is.
Yeah.
But the good news is that, each generation builds on the progress of the one before it. The LGBTQ plus community today is stronger and more organized than ever before.
That's right.
And they have allies across all walks of life.
That's incredibly encouraging. But it also means we can't be complacent.
No, absolutely not.
We have to keep learning from the past.
Yeah.
Engaging in dialogue, and advocating for a more just and inclusive society.
Right.
So what do you think, what can we as individuals do to ensure that we're on the right side of history, so to speak?
Well, first and foremost, I think we need to educate ourselves.
Yeah.
Understand the issues, listen to the experiences of LGBTQ plus people, and challenge our own biases.
Okay.
We also need to speak out against injustice and discrimination, whether it's in our personal lives or on a larger scale. And finally, we need to support organizations and individuals who are fighting for equality and justice.
Those are all fantastic points, and I think it comes back to the idea of empathy and understanding.
Yeah.
We might not always agree with everyone,
Right.
but we can strive to treat each other with respect and dignity.
Yeah.
regardless of our differences.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the ultimate legacy we can hope for.
Yeah.
To create a world where everyone feels safe, accepted, and valued for who they are.
That's a beautiful sentiment. And it leads me to a question for you, our listener.
Okay.
What resonated most with you in Bryant's story?
Yeah.
What surprised you, challenged you, or made you think differently? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Wow, it's amazing how one person's story can just spark so many bigger conversations.
It really is.
You know, we've gone from orange juice to the evolution of social movements.
Right.
Just a few minutes.
I know, it's crazy.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's the beauty of a deep dive like this, you know? You start with one thread, and it leads you to this whole tapestry of connected ideas and events.
And I think that's what makes Anita Bryant's story so relevant.
Right.
Even, decades later.
Yeah.
It's not just about her. It's about how her choices reflected.
Right.
And even shaped the times that she lived in.
Exactly. We see, the rise of celebrity culture, the changing landscape of American values, and this ongoing struggle for LGBTQ plus equality, all playing out in her life.
It really makes you think about the legacy we all leave behind.
Yeah.
Intended or not.
Right.
Bryant may have been known for orange juice and her activism. But, the conversation we're having now, that's part of her legacy, too.
And it circles back to what you said earlier about, not reducing people to simple labels.
Right.
Bryant was complex, flawed, and ultimately a product of her time.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we can't learn from her story.
Absolutely, whether we agree with her or not.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack about the power of belief, the impact of our words and actions.
And the importance of empathy, even when facing opposing viewpoints.
I think those are lessons that transcend any specific era or social movement.
Yeah.
They're about being engaged citizens.
Right.
Critical thinkers.
Yeah.
And compassionate human beings. And I think those are qualities we need now more than ever.
Well said.
Thanks.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the life and legacy of Anita Bryant, I'm left with this lingering thought.
Yeah.
If we were to examine our own lives, what would our story say about the times we live in? What impact are we making knowingly or unknowingly?
That's a powerful question to consider, and I think it speaks to the importance of self-reflection, of understanding our place in the larger narrative of history.
Right.
Because ultimately, we all have a role to play in shaping the world around us.
And who knows, maybe someday someone will be doing a deep dive into our lives.
Yeah.
Trying to make sense of it all.
Maybe, perhaps. But until then, let's keep learning, keep questioning, and keep striving to create a better future. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration.